This is Speaking of Events, the podcast for event industry leaders. We bring together innovators, strategic rock stars, and visionary creatives to talk all about events, industry trends, and anything in between. And speaking of events, here is your host, Kerri Garbis.
All right, so a number of months ago, I'm doing a webinar for a brand new client, and this is kind of a big deal client. And we're getting about 400 of their speakers up and ready for an up and coming big deal conference. And I'm doing the kickoff webinar. It's about best practices of virtual presentations. And I'm psyched, except 10 minutes into the webinar, I realized something in the right-hand corner of my computer screen, like in the upper right-hand corner, is flashing red. And I'm like, what's that? And I realize it's the battery low, you're going to shut down and go to sleep and everybody's going to die sign. I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? So I keep talking through the content of my webinar, keeping the audience engaged. And I'm looking around like, okay, where is my plug? I'm looking on the floor and I'm doing everything to now like get it into the content of the webinar. I'm like, so if you're nervous, what you want to do is just stretch up and then stretch down. So I could like have an excuse to look on the floor to see it, because I was standing on my studio side, to see if I could like find the plug. The plug is not there. And I am panicking. I'm like, crap, what do I do? I can't look like a complete idiot and stop the webinar. So I do what any good event professional does, and I think on my feet and went with it and decided, okay, well now since I have to talk about how to grab the attention of your audience, I'm going to demonstrate an attention grabber, and it can be something totally outrageous. So what I did was I said, here's an example of an outrageous attention grabber for no reason. And I opened up the door to my office and I screamed down to my husband, can you please get me the plug to my computer? I'm on a webinar and my computer's about to die. And I slammed the door. And the people, I'm getting chat responses like LOL, and that was great. And I'm explaining how you can kind of do anything and then tie it back to your content. And sure enough, like a minute later, the man hand of my husband hands me the plug, and I'm like, thanks a lot. And I was like, hey, truth be told, I actually needed this plug. I plug it in, all was well. And I share the story to tell you that event people were adaptable and we do it on the fly. And my guest today knows a lot about that. And I can't wait to hear some times when you've had to be adaptable as well. So please welcome as today's guest on Speaking of Events, the manager of corporate events at Netsmart. It's Jennifer Delaney. My pleasure. Hello, Jennifer, not Jen. Do not call her Jen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome.
Do this. Yes.
You're adaptable, right? We talked about this.
100%. Yes. So it's funny because, like you had mentioned, being adaptable is key to corporate events. We're constantly, the thing I like to say the most is that we're a duck on water. We're calm and cool and collected on top and no big deal. And then underneath, we're just paddling like heck. So, yes.
Yeah. And there's a lot to paddle through. And certainly the past has the past couple years been more to paddle through than prior? Is it very much kind of a before days and after days for you?
Yes. I would say a lot of what has happened is a lot of pivoting, right? I love hearing friends and they're like, pivot, that one scene with the couch. It's a lot of just moving, being agile, being flexible, and mind you, those that are not in events look to the events professionals with all of the answers. I'm going to tell you right now, we don't have all the answers. So we're learning and we fake it till we make it, more or less. And so what ends up happening what ended up happening was when COVID happened and everything shut down, it was like, okay, what do we do next? And the event industry just really had to shift to the virtual, thinking, oh, it's going to be great, we can do it. And not only was it learning for, the events professionals, but it was also learning for your speakers, your guests, the individuals that you were working with, stakeholders, strategizing. And so I would say we were all teaching as we were learning. And the same goes for after COVID, post-COVID realm. It's kind of, dusting off the old ways prior to or pre-COVID. And so it's, again, kind of going, wait, what? How do we do that? And it's kind of just not being as rusty, if you will, and kind of shifting. It's really interesting because it's faster pace. I feel like it's faster paced than it was pre-COVID. But it's also a lot of things were changing up how we've done things or how we're doing things versus how we had done them before. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel my perspective that it's faster paced. And I think that's that because it's been mixed up is because why? That there was a lot of, okay, here we go again with this event. And there was a lot of like, let's get in the groove of this event. We know what it is. Let's get into the groove of this one. The grooves got washed away.
Right.
We'll go with the duck water metaphor. I kind of like it. The grooves got washed away and now we've got mud. We got to make some new grooves.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Sorry.
Yes. No, but it is. I mean, you're absolutely right. So we're kind of slugging through and cleaning up the watery mess that was caused a few years ago. And things are changing and things are different than they were, but it's good changes, a lot of just variations, and you just, now it's kind of like, okay, well, it's different than it was then, but not all of the difference is bad.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So from your perspective, you've got some good event experience. We're going to talk about that. What is the one thing you wished more people knew about events?
The one thing I wish that more people would know about events is that we're not just party planners. There is a lot of thought, a lot of strategy that goes on behind the scenes, and there is a reason for everything, and it's not just, oh, you're planning a party and you can just do all of this. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort, and you do have to be very flexible and collaborative at the same time. So yeah. I think the one thing is that we are not just party planners. There's a lot more that goes on behind it.
Oh, yes. Does that happen often? Are you sometimes at an event, not one of yours, maybe something, right, a school event for your child or like something that's not work related, and someone will say, oh, you say, hi, I'm Jennifer, and they're like, hey, Jen, what do you do? Because of course they're going to immediately call you Jen.
Right.
So they say, yeah, Jen, nice to meet you. And you're like, never mind. And then you'll say, I'm in events, or I'm just putting words in your mouth at a party now, manager of corporate events at Netsmart. And they're like, oh, so you're a party planner. Is that like a thing? Does that happen?
A little bit, yeah. And then what I also find is that everyone around me in my personal life wants me to plan something for them. And I refuse because—
Good for you.
Yes, I mean, I do. There are limits, there are boundaries. And just actually this last weekend, we had our family, bunch of our family in town this week. But we had family reunion last weekend, and my parents were like, "Hey, you should come and play in this." I was like, "Not a chance, not a chance."
No. Yeah.
When it's your daytime job, and this is what you're solely focused on for 80% of your time, it's you gotta set those boundaries, and I have to check out. Now there's things that get me excited. There's things that in my personal life where I'm like, yeah, I really want to do that. But by and large, I really try to keep my distance from it.
Where's the line? Like, will you make a dinner reservation? I mean, what's the limit for you?
The limit for me would be maybe a group of 6, maybe a group
At
of 8
dinner.
people at dinner.
Right. So you don't have to go to banquet sales at the restaurant. You just have to make a reservation online.
Right.
Is that?
Or like, yes. Or like a birthday, and we get a limo, and I get everyone an amenity type of like a little gift, that they have, things like that, but very minimal. Or obviously my daughter's birthday or my husband's birthday, but beyond that, no.
That's nice. You got limos on birthdays in Missouri? That is like not a thing here. That's amazing.
Well, when you live in Kansas City and everything's really spread out.
It is. I was thinking, yes, it is really spread. Okay, fair. That's fair. All right. Wonderful.
In the Midwest.
It's true. It's so true. Yeah, we have teeny tiny streets here. Everything's old. So you have been in the event space for 7 years.
Yep.
And it is the duck that's paddling. It's exhausting. It is burnout in this industry, particularly over the past 2 years, rampant. So how do you handle that, and how do you overcome it if you're nearing the edge, or like see it in your team? Like, what do you do for that?
Yeah. So what I do for my team personally, I just have those frank conversations with them, and I think we all kind of feel that pressure. There's this guilt that we have if we take that time off, or this, oh, but I really have to do this, or I have to do that. If I see it in associates that I work with, I really try to, just be, vocal about it, and just say, hey, take that time off. Take that time to, recharge, reset. I know for myself, taking mental time, or, to recharge when I exhibit those signs and I can see them and recognize them in myself, I get selfish. And that is not a bad thing, to be selfish, because we're giving so much of ourselves, of our time, we're always on. So I either switch up my day at work and I come in a little bit later, or I leave a little bit earlier, or I change my working environment. I may work from home one day, or I may work from a coffee shop for a couple of hours to get myself out of that kind of rut, that mental rut. But then I also may take a mental health day, or I will, like this week, I took a staycation. I took PTO all week. I took a couple of meetings, things that, can't, stop, right? Or important things that I needed to be on or conduct. But typically it's those pieces, right? Like this week, I knew I wanted the time. I needed the time, just for me, and my daughter's going back to school. So that's really ultimately what I do. And I would recommend it to anyone. It's okay to be selfish. It's okay to mentally check out, as you should. Mental health is so important nowadays, more than ever, with electronics and technology, and especially the way that our kids are growing out nowadays in school. But it's super, super important, because you need that for yourself, for your sanity, and for your overall well-being. But then at the same time, it's your work-life balance. You got to find that right balance to keep you sane and trucking.
Yeah. Yes. If you could create your ultimate mental health day, what would it be?
Oh, I would I would take a train to Nashville. And there is they have a Union Station there. It's an old Union Station that they've converted into a luxury hotel. And I would just rent a room there and just have a spa day and go to local shops and local restaurants and little mom and pop places. And then I would take the train back. That is what I would do if I could do
love
anything.
that. Yes. That sounds amazing. And I love Nashville, and I will meet you there. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
You're like, wait, the mental health, not Kerri health, but thank you. Thank you. I just assumed I was invited.
You are invited.
Okay. I'll give you a day and then I'll meet you the next day. Just
Perfect.
one.
Perfect.
All right, I want to change gears, if you don't mind, because I want to talk about my favorite topic, which is speakers, as you know. Yes. Ovations, what we do. We get the speakers ready. Do you have a speaker disaster story that you are willing to share with us, please?
I have an event disaster story.
Yes, and those count too. Go.
A lot of the speakers that I have worked with, and I'll just touch on that a little bit, are very well, have been really well prepared. There's a lot of, I'm very diligent, so that can, by sometimes to a fault, happen, but it's very much making sure that they understand the ropes, give them housekeeping items, make sure that their presentations are ready to go. I don't have one for that, but I have an excellent one for the event standpoint.
All ears. We are all ears.
So it happened fairly recently. There was an instance where we had a retreat. I was working an event in a tropical location, and we had quite a few guests and their spouses at this retreat. And we had a day of activities planned for them, and we went to a restaurant where there were shops, and then after the restaurant and the shopping, then we were going to take them on a boat for a little overwater excursion. Well, we get to the restaurant and a little bit ahead of the guests, and we had been working with a local DMC down there, and everything was set. We had planned it out. We planned the timing. We had everything confirmed with the DMC and the restaurant. We get there, and the DMC tells me that the restaurant is running about 10 minutes behind. Okay, think nothing of it. The 10 minutes turns into an hour of waiting for the food to be ready and prepped. And mind you, we were on very tight timeline for it as well, to make the boat. And so it didn't disrupt or interfere with us getting back to the hotel and getting everybody ready for dinner and entertainment started. So long story short, I had quite the conversation with the DMC and with the management of the restaurant. We came up with solutions. They comped us on a few things, and substantially, mind you. And we had some complimentary drinks and extra little things added in. Did have to talk with our CEO about the issues, but then also presented him with, here are the solutions as well, because you can never go to somebody and say, here's the problem without
right, yes.
And that's something else with events. That's something else that I don't think a lot of people know, is we're very solution oriented. That's where your brain has to be. You have to see no walls. And so spoke with the CEO. He was like, okay. And then we went on our way, but it didn't really impact the boat excursion. Fortunately, we were still able to have the same amount of time on the boat, and we got everyone back to the hotel in a timely fashion. So everything did work out in the end, but in the moment, it was very, very stressful, and guests could sense it too. We tried to kind of shield them a little bit from that, because this is their experience, and we should handle all of the chaos that ensues. But yeah,
that's impressive that it didn't mess up the boat. I foresaw like to-go bags of, I don't know, linguine out of I don't know. So
well, we did have to go pie and things of that nature, because we couldn't hit dessert there at the restaurant, but the rest of it worked out pretty surprisingly well. So I can't complain.
I to your point that it is much more of the event mindset to say, okay, here's the change, versus saying we've got a problem. But you might think that in your brain of like, okay, here's the problem. And it's typically, in my experience, so many of us and then are like, all right, this is what we're doing now, right? A couple of things happened, we got to do this now.
Right.
So
exactly. Yeah. And I find that everyone, I think, should be an event planner or manager or coordinator, whatever, an event professional at least once in their life, because they will find themselves thinking more efficiently, thinking on their toes, and being more solution focused. And I think that if others could have that kind of experience, and you're working with many different personalities too. I mean, and you have to be able to tactfully and diplomatically work with all types of personalities, whether they're vendors or they're associates or they're your CEO.
Right. Yes, I totally agree with that. I often say that I wish every American had the experience of working in a restaurant. You're right. Yes. I think the same thing, because it would show you how kind of the back workings and a different way of thinking.
Yes.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I do want to talk about the past couple years, that because it happened and was there and kind of still is here. I think it's funny, we often say, oh, when COVID was a thing, and it's still kind of very much a thing. So how are I just, in my brain, this is an official question, like how are we going to talk about it in a year from now or 4 years from now? I wonder how we'll look back and see this kind of, what I see a little bit as nebulous times, especially, we've got COVID, it's there, it's kind of feels in the background often. It might bubble up sometimes, but it really feels to me it's always there and in the background. And then we've got like monkeypox, like hovering over like a bad cloud. I'm not even sure what that is. So what about in the past 2 years, focusing on that, with just talk about the virtual, the pivoting, the adapting, what do you think you've learned from that?
I've learned that for me personally, and I'll get to just overall mankind, me personally, I find myself more resilient. I feel that I'm more, I can persevere more than I thought I could. You find out a lot about yourself. I think mankind as a whole, as a society, we've also learned that we can do this. We have done the same. And it's definitely stretched our muscles and made us more also appreciative of where we are, who we are, and how far we have come as a whole, collectively. But the last thing I would say, and I think that this should have been the first thing I said, is that events are more, it just revalidates why events are so important. Human interaction is so key and so important. And it's fundamental. It's not just about events. If you think about it in your everyday life, human interaction is proven, scientifically proven, to help with better health and your overall well-being. And it's who we are. It's ingrained in our cells, to our core. And so when you see events, it's not just putting, together something where you say, what's in it for me? It's also the relational aspect. You're building those relationships. It's part of a brand, right? So all of those components, I'd say, I have learned more. It's reaffirmed and confirmed why events are so important. It's perseverance, and it's just, who we are. I just see so much growth in us as a society.
Absolutely. Beautifully stated. What do you think happened? What did we miss? So other than human interaction, yes. What did we miss the opportunities for other things in the past 2 years? Yeah, the human piece went away. What else did we? There were lots of misses. I mean, because we were making it up as we went. So what did we miss? What can we do now?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that we've missed is that because we were moving so quickly, we were all moving so quickly, we didn't take time to analyze the data that we were receiving from the virtual platforms. We had so much data that we could have tapped into to be more strategic in how we communicated, or how we sold, or how we continue to forge relationships. There was so much traffic that we could have tapped into, whether it was visiting the virtual booth, or downloading a piece of collateral, or obtaining email. I think that we were just doing that. We didn't take a moment to say, okay, let's take this information. We have all of this info. How do we dissect it? How do we analyze it? And what do we do with it going forward? And I think that was a big missed opportunity in the virtual space.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. It was, none of us had time to stop, and we just were doing. We were doing and serving. And it's fun to look back and see what you learned. So tell us, take a look back. Take a look back, Jennifer, back behind you from, you went to the University of Central Missouri. You have a Bachelor of Science in Corporate Communications. You are now working events at a healthcare IT company. Fair to say, right? Netsmart is a healthcare IT. Okay, good. So glad I got that right.
You did.
All right. So how do we get there? Bachelor of Science, Corporate Communications,
right?
Healthcare IT events.
So it was a long journey, but here we are.
Here we are. In your living room.
I know. Yes. So I knew early on that I loved being creative. I just had that kind of creative mind. I had a passion for it. When you're in college, you hear a lot of, you got to do what you love, right? A job is going to be a job, but you have to enjoy it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we know we want the paycheck. It supports our living and our lifestyle. And I went and got my degree in corporate comm. That at the time, so I graduated in 2008. So corporate communications was an emerging field at the time. And it was a smorgasbord. It was a hybrid of internal communications and team building and just building the morale of a company. And then it was also a little bit of PR and the external comm as well. I thought, great, that sounds excellent. And I'm going to minor in marketing because then it just seems very well-rounded. I started out in my career in marketing And that went for 5-6 years solely. So I had tapped into everything. So I was like, when you're first starting out, you kind of you dip your toe in the sphere, right, of the space, and you're testing out what is fun, what do you like, what you don't like, where's your niche. And then as those 5-6 years happened, I kind of went through those years. I also dabbled in events as well. And I knew I really enjoyed it. I was like, okay, this seems like something that I would really want to do. And just so happened, about 7-8 years ago, I was kind of just positioned into an events role. And there were some things that had kind of happened at the company that I was with at the time. There were some shifts that happened. And so it was kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of thrown on me, all of the events that the company had took in. And where you really find your passion is when you are put in an uncomfortable position or uncomfortable situation, enough, but not enough, if that makes sense, to be an expert. And I really just rolled up my sleeves. I dug in. I really wanted to understand the depth of events and the breadth of the events itself, so I could become an expert in that. I'm like, I take this very seriously. I really want to do this. And then that's where my passion and my true love came from. And to become an expert in a field, you have to do that. You have to do your research, and you can't stop learning and growing. And then from there, I've been in events ever since. There were a couple of times in my since then that I kind of took a couple of jumps. What you hear or what you think a position is going to be doesn't always turn out. And I was in animal health for many, many, many years. I loved it. I grew a passion for that industry. And then I said, okay, my time here is done. I'm ready to pivot, if you will. And knowing about Netsmart and the passion for the health and human services, whether it's IDD, addiction, just overall behavioral health, mental health, and then post-acute, whether it's hospice, long-term care, that's, I was like, this is a really good transition, because if you don't know this, sidebar, veterinary, right? So animal health, a lot of the medicines and the treatment come from the human health side. And so I felt like it was a natural pivot overall to go from the animal health side into the human health and then healthcare IT. I just thought it was fabulous. And the company is very strong. We're number one in our market, in our niche, very robust and thriving company.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Great culture, excellent culture. And so it was just something that I said, you know what, this is my next career move, and I've loved it ever since.
Did you get your dog while you were in the animal care space or in the human care space?
Before animal health. I got, yes. And actually, funny enough.
And then when did you get your human?
During animal health.
During animal health, you got the human. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
It was funny because my sister saw a dog online, a little puppy, and said, "Here, you need this puppy." And I was like, "No, I don't." And then that afternoon, I see her on my front porch with the puppy. It said, "Here you go."
I want a sister like that. I do a sister like that. That's so nice. I love that.
Yeah, but I wasn't expecting all the financial implications that it would have either.
It is a family member, isn't it? It is.
Absolutely.
Indeed. And then they bark and things during podcast recording. We haven't heard them, so that's lovely.
Yes.
What a
Public-
journey.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it.
of course.
Jennifer Delaney, are you ready for our Lightning Express round?
Always. Here we go.
Yes, you are. All right, I'm going to put 45 seconds on the clock. You've got 7 questions. Here we go. Number 1, what is your favorite moment in the event process?
Seeing it come to life. All together in the moment when it's all done and live.
Love it. Who do you consider your mentor?
My dad.
Oh, I love that. Jennifer, what is your favorite episode of Friends?
The one where he's a pivot. I don't know the names. I was like the one where. So that's the one.
Right, they're all called the one where. It doesn't have. You don't have to know the title. Is it like the I'm your lobster one? Because that's my favorite.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. What do you do every day to stay healthy and sane besides watch Friends?
And Wheel of Fortune. That's my hidden pleasure.
Oh, nice.
I watch Wheel of Fortune every night at 6:30. I record it every night. I love it. Besides those, I take a walk with my husband every night.
Oh, I love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
If you weren't talking to me right now, what would you be doing?
Probably checking email and snuggling with my daughter.
Oh. And because you're from Kansas City, I have to ask, what's your favorite barbecue place?
Oh.
Arthur Bryant's, Gates.
No.
No. Oh no. Oh, her face. Audience, you did not see her. It was a disapproving face of hatred.
They're different sauces.
There are different sauces, yes. So everybody I've had on the podcast so far, I think you're the number 3 from Kansas City. So I need to ask, favorite barbecue place?
Joe's KC.
Oh yes. Okay. Fair. Yes. That's ranks. Absolutely. And last question: how do we best thank an event professional?
How do we best thank them? Gifts. We love gifts.
We do love gifts. You and I just talked about that yesterday. We love gifts.
We love gifts. The best way to thank us is, because it is a very thankless job. I gotta admit, it's no offense to anybody out there that I've done events for, but it's really a thankless job. Gifts. I would say continuous recognition of the hard work. It's not just, oh, thank you for putting this on, but actually recognizing the thought, the throughput, the effort, the strategy, it's just a labor of our love, but it's always nice to be recognized for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Guess what? Congratulations. You have lived through the Lightning Express round. Good job. And
thank you so much.
You're welcome. Jennifer Delaney, where can people find you if they want to connect with you? Where can they find you?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn at Jennifer Delaney. You'll be able to see me right up there. My title is up there as well, Manager of Corporate Events at Netsmart.
Indeed. And we'll put that link in the show notes too.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time out of your staycation. I am honored that you got gussied up from me. Thank you very much. Jennifer Delaney. Oh, you're so welcome. What a delightful conversation. I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as I did, because I'm in a super great mood now. I'm a duck on smooth water right now. And remember, if you like events, if you love events, and even if you loathe events, tell someone about this podcast and give Jennifer 5 stars. She was amazing. Come on, get on Apple. Give us some stars. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your time and your insight and all your inspiration and reminding us the importance of mental health and taking care of ourselves. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you to our audience again for listening. And remember that whatever you speak about, remember to be speaking of events. Have a great day.
Speaking of Events is sponsored by Ovation, the gold standard for professional presence and speaker development training, helping everyone get prepared, get confident, and get Ovation.